I can't thank you all enough for being part of this film tonight. I don't know about you. It's really affected me. How can we be so arrogant, have such hubris to allow the destruction of something as beautiful and living and intelligent and complicated and important as coral reefs? I'm so grateful to Jeff Orlovsky, who's here with us tonight. Thank you for being here. Jeff is the director of the film and a producer, and Larissa Rhodes is a producer as well. Thank you both for being part of this.
Thank you, Jane.
Before I start passing questions to you from the audience, I just want to say to you all, do you understand why we have to stop fossil fuel? We have to stop the burning of fossil fuel. Okay, my personal question to you both is, if we can phase out of fossil fuel, can corals come back?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's an uphill battle, but it's totally doable. The projections for corals are not positive right now, but we know that corals can survive, and corals are resilient, and corals can recover, and they can regrow. You know, if you sort of think about it, if you clear cut a forest, those trees can grow back over time, right? It takes a while, but that recovery is doable, and animals will come back to that landscape. And so that's a simplification, and it's not a perfect correlation analogy there, but I think of it in a similar way. These reefs that die can come back. And there has been research that people have been doing as well to study just how quickly they can come back. How long does it take for life to repopulate an area? You know, you're not. It's going to take 100 years to make 100-year-old coral, those big, massive, beautiful pieces. But some species can grow very quickly and start to fill out and provide homes and habitats.
Thank you for that. I have a question from Shelley. Are there any ocean reefs that are doing all right, islands or other places that have been able to slow the deterioration?
Yes, actually, Dr. Sylvia Earle has an organization in the group where they create hope spots, and those are places around the world that they are dedicating to, you know, protect and create, because they believe that they have the best chance of survival. And I think locally you're able to see where people do start to protect reef areas, where they don't climb on them, touch them, where they don't have sunscreens that chemicals can destroy those reefs, and also where we are recognizing our own contributions, whether that's agricultural runoff or other things. Reefs can survive, but I think what we're also seeing is that our oceans are connected. It is one ocean, and that heat that is coming from the carbon dioxide of the fossil fuels being burned is warming the ocean. And it doesn't matter how much we, you know, protect the reefs from trash or plastic or any of those things. If the temperature continues to warm, there's nothing they can do. They can migrate, actually, but that's over a very small, a long amount of time. So the reality is we really need to protect them by stop burning fossil fuels, by lowering the temperature of the oceans.
And just to add to that, one of the things that we've seen with marine protected areas, as Larissa was referencing, like there are a lot of things that humans do that can stress a reef. So if you think about your own immune system and all the things that you could do to your body that kind of dampen your immune system, that makes it easier for you to get sick, that's the same thing that happens to coral reefs. So the more we can protect them, the stronger their immune system is for events like bleaching. So in marine protected areas that aren't getting fished, you can see how the fish populations are resilient, and those reefs handle that really, really well. And so there are lots of opportunities for continued growth and sustainability in the ocean.
From Diana, people avoid looking at bad things that are out of their control. How do we make people actually look at this?
Yeah, I can jump in, Larissa.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think this is something that we've always, as filmmakers and as storytellers, we've always tried to wrestle with the balance of some of the hard realities that we face in our world, and yet how do you deliver that medicine, and how do you get the spoonful of sugar to help make that you know, engaging? Our approach with Chasing Coral was really around celebrating the beauty and the magic and the wonder of this landscape. Hopefully helping people fall in love with the landscape and see how special it really is. That was also our same approach with our prior film, Chasing Ice, with Chasing Ice showing these beautiful, vast glacial landscapes. And hopefully if viewers and audiences can come in through the sheer cinematography and the celebration of these ecosystems, then you can learn and understand what's going on in that process.
Yeah.
I would also say celebrating the scientists and the activists who continue to show up every day to do their work. That's the hope and the power, is that you can look at things that are really depressing all day long, but when you start to look at the baby turtle who makes it into the ocean at the end, that for me, we can keep going.
Yeah.
Right on, Larissa. How can people get involved to save the coral reefs?
So there's a number of different ways to get involved. I think the first thing is obviously to think about your own personal usage. But I think it's also really important for us to consider that we live in a system, and that system is not necessarily designed to support us. So I can, not use plastic bags, or I can change my own personal behaviors by driving an electric vehicle. And I also still need to use my voice and help change the system. There's a number of individual things that are happening right now. Our team at Exposure Labs is working on an initiative called Film in the Field, which is helping to use film to drive climate action, just like Chasing Coral. So that's our power. We're using our secret sauce of art and film to help bring people together. But there are many other different ways, and we can drop some into the chat for people who are looking to get involved, whether that's through their own activism, politically or individually.
Yeah. This is a collective crisis that we're facing, right? And it's going to require collective action. It's important for us all to do individual things, but we have to get organized.
Absolutely.
We have to organize and rise up as a collective.
I think it is all those individual actions that add up, not just in the total sum of those individual actions, but when other people see their friends or their family or other people that are close to them take those actions, it changes them as well. It has that domino effect.
Yeah.
So, I mean, every individual choice is making a difference, not just at the personal level, but it is contributing towards that systems level.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that certainly with climate change, it has felt like it has taken so long to get real attention within the movement. But I feel genuinely like we're hitting a tipping point now. The conversations have shifted. Politicians seem to actually get it and care. Priorities are being shifted. We're talking about climate justice now in a completely new way, talking about environmental justice in a completely new way. And the movement has sort of hit this turning point that is really, for me, it's very, very inspiring, and it's exciting that we've built a critical mass. It's taken a long time for a lot of activists, a lot of storytellers, a lot of people really trying to raise the alarm. And they were, making those changes in their individual lives. It has now become more business savvy for companies to be eco-friendly than to follow older practices, right? So we've seen it shift and put pressure on the markets as well. So that's I think all of these things are adding towards a tidal change, if you will. And I'm hopeful and optimistic that we're at this really, really critical inflection point in society right now.
I agree with you, and thank God, because we have a decade, right?
Yeah.
To cut our emissions in half.
Yep.
Yep.
We appear to be, here's another question of the audience. We appear to be in a golden age of documentaries. Why do you think people are drawn so much now to documentaries?
That's a great question.
I can jump in, Larissa. I love the question, and I have so many thoughts on it. But I would say it's a couple of different things. First of all, technology has gotten easier and more accessible and more available for people to make films, and the cost of making a documentary has really dropped, and making it much more easy to explore stories and to pursue that. The quality of documentary filmmaking has just gotten higher and higher and higher every passing year. The stories are so compelling and so strong, and really, really great nonfiction films coming out. And lastly, I think our society's hungry for truth. I think we're hungry for like a better understanding, and to wrap our heads around why the world is the way that it is, and to see both our problems and the solutions ahead of us. And so, and in many ways, like truth is stranger than fiction, and all of those true stories that can be told in a compelling way and captured and shared with audiences. All of that is sort of hitting that golden era.
Yeah.
I would also say too that I think there's a recognition too that there are so many stories out there that haven't been told, including stories of those who are most impacted and those who are working on the front lines. And so there's this exciting opportunity for people to spotlight and elevate new stories about different types of characters, which I think is what audiences are most hungry for.
What are you working on? Are you working on a new project, the two of you?
We just finished a big film that we released called The Social Dilemma, and so The Social Dilemma has been taking up a huge amount of energy. Even just this morning, being part of a committee, a hearing where they were, having a hearing with Zuckerberg and Dorsey and Pichai. So our time and energy has been in working on that project as well, and we are thinking through new works, but nothing is public
It's
just
a
yet.
wonderful documentary. I urge everybody to see it.
Thank you.
Remind me what channel it's on?
So The Social Dilemma is also on Netflix. Yeah.
It's on Netflix. Go Netflix.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a very interesting question. Have you considered making lighter, happier film? How do you stay optimistic while working on difficult topics?
Oh my goodness, Larissa, we have this group internal team channel where we, different ideas come up, and sometimes I think we both are just like, what's the 3-minute, happy animation we could make that is both easy to do and makes us smile and feel good. We would love to go down that path as well. I think it's been the blend of these big issues and trying to tackle these big issues, and how do we keep ourselves sustained at the same time, because they are heavy subjects sometimes.
Yeah, I think even Chasing Coral for me was probably the most pessimistic and the most optimistic I've been in making a project. It was for our team such an incredible discovery of all of these people around the world who cared so much about their corals and cared so much about being part of a solution. So that was really optimistic. And then, of course, seeing the science and seeing the projections and recognizing how far, cheers, we have to go is just, it's the other side. So I think Jeff is right. You kind of need both.
It was wonderful having that young man, the Swedish looking kid, who was such a coral nerd.
Zach.
Having him be part of that was really inspired.
Yeah. He is, go ahead, Larissa.
No, I was just going to say, we feel so lucky to have had Zach as part of this project. He is our resident coral nerd and is actually pursuing his PhD to continue his studies in the ocean world. So it's very exciting for all of his fans, me being one of them.
Give him our love.
I will.
Well, somebody wants to know, what was the biggest challenge you faced making this film?
Jeff?
Oh my goodness.
Where to start?
I feel like you saw most of them in the film itself. Yeah. But there was a period. So in a film, in a story arc, there is, in a 3-act structure, there's often a point of no return before the climax in a story structure. And I feel like we had our own very visceral point of no return when we were out there in Australia and we were trying to document the bleaching and we weren't capturing it, and we knew it was happening nearby. And it really was this question that Larissa and I and our whole team had to wrestle with, like, do we continue trying to film this or not? We had been multiple years in at this point. We had spent so much money on all of this technology and trying to capture it. We kept failing over and over and over again to capture what we were trying to capture. And
your
it was
visas
this,
were going to expire.
Our visas were expiring. We were like, way overdue on, like, fortunately we booked the flights on air miles and we were able to like change the return flight for no fee, like half a dozen times or something. And so it really was this, challenging time around, can we keep pursuing this, and is it going to pay off or not? And this odd tension and balance of like you're trying to capture something that you don't really want to see in the first place.
Yeah.
So that was really one of the most difficult periods, where we didn't know if we were going to get the footage that we were seeking or not, and then having to make this really challenging logistics decision to pick up the whole team and go to a different place and
And just
upend
do
all
it
of our plans
manually.
and just do it manually and like invent a new process that, you know, we realized this was the only way we can do it. In retrospect, we learned so much. My goodness, I would have started with that process. If
Was this
anybody
one
ever,
was
yeah.
this one harder than chasing ice?
Yeah, well, yes. I think this one really was harder than chasing ice. Chasing ice was challenging for the physical locations and just the extremes. I mean, it's certainly a lot nicer to sit on a beautiful, warm, sunny beach as opposed to freezing at negative 40 degrees. But the logistical challenges and the working in salt water and designing this technology and capturing something that's so ephemeral, they were both incredibly challenging. But there were a lot of challenges on this one.
And then the social dilemma, totally other.
Totally different headspace and lots of new challenges on that. The social dilemma were kind of intellectual challenges around what is this problem that we're talking about and what is this technology doing. So yeah.
It was climate change for me that actually really got me involved in the social dilemma. We were, in our office in Boulder, and we Googled once we learned that Google doesn't necessarily show you the truth or facts, I should say. And so we Googled climate change is space, and the answers that the autofill that came up were not real, a hoax, fake, and then the fourth answer was real. And I thought, how can this be? And so Jeff crowdsourced other options. We asked friends to send us what they were seeing, and they were all different. I think Jeff, in Denmark, it was a wicked problem. In China, it was real.
It was amazing to see like Google's autofill suggestions on climate change were different for every person, pretty much. Not every person, but every region. Like New Yorkers got similar things, people in Colorado got similar things, people in Europe got similar things, but these were completely night and day differences. And it was like, no wonder we have so much denial about climate change. No wonder it's been so hard to get policy passed. No wonder in the United States we've been wrestling with this issue for decades now, and it's only become more and more entrenched and more exacerbated through our technology. And by the way, that's the case for most politicized issues now. If if it's harder and harder for you to have a conversation with somebody you disagree with, take a look at their feed, take a look at what they're looking at and what they're seeing every day. And so that's where Larissa and I really got into the social dilemma, was looking at it from this climate lens of, we had been doing impact events with Chasing Ice and Chasing Coral for years, and we just kept coming up against climate deniers all over the place. And it's like, we've got evidence, like, look at the pictures, this is the story, this is what's going on, and the science is there, and people weren't seeing that science.
They didn't want to see it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So from Kat, what was the editing process like, and how long did it take?
Oh, poor Davis, our editor, and our assistant editors, Patrick, Tessa, and Dave, really, and Tim, I should say, Patrick, Dave, and really had quite a feat in front of them. And I think we actually started editing before we were actually had captured the full bleaching, and had to pause the edit and go back into production, Jeff, and then kind of come back to the edit.
I don't remember the exact number of how many hundreds of hours or how many terabytes. I mean, it's just huge amounts of footage. And we had the good fortune on this project to work with some really, really high quality cameras. And I think for our whole team, we constantly have been pushing boundaries, either within the technology or what have you. And oftentimes that ends up bottlenecking the editing process massively. Like, we're working with 6K footage on computers that are like at their max with, whatever budget we could spend on the computers, and just dealing with hard drives upon hard drives and connecting footage. Editing, in my mind, is always one of the most challenging parts for a documentary. You really find the film in the edit room. And that's something where I've always been so appreciative of having like a lot of editing time to really discover and work with the footage and live with the footage and find the gems and to make things work. So, and it's one of those things where you can, you know, if you're starting out, if you're making your first film, or something like that, like if you can learn how to edit, you can put so much of your own time into making that project happen, and to continue to work on it to make it better and better and better. That was something I always appreciated about the editing process, because it's not like it's a you always can work to tweak and to improve where you're at.
Well, it's time to wrap up. Jeff and Larissa, I just thank you so much for making this movie and for letting us show it on Fire Drill Friday movie night, our first inaugural movie night. Very grateful.
Awesome.
Very grateful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I wish you
much.
much success on your next project.
Thank you so much.
All of my Fire Drill drillers for joining in. We'd like to know what you thought of tonight, if you enjoyed movie night and want us to do more of them. I'm sure you learned from this documentary. I certainly did. One thing that we can do is to stop subsidies for fossil fuel industry, and you can do that by going to firedrillfridays.com/take action. And please join us tomorrow at 11 p.m. Pacific time. It's going to be a really interesting Fire Drill Friday with my favorite scientist, who's going to talk about fracking. And you won't want to miss this. This is scary stuff, but she has the soul of a poet. And so the way she talks about it is it's unique, and it's also very inspiring. Have a good night's sleep. I didn't get drunk. I'm so glad. I was too taken by the movie to even finish my drink. Send us your ideas for drinks in the future.